Have dating apps become disposable? Are dating apps just a catalogue of options for us to flick through and treat people like they were cattle fodder, where we could dispose of them, pick them up, throw them away because there's always another option? Or have the apps created opportunity for some people where previously they had no opportunity at all? Have the apps just made the whole process of dating a marketplace for selling yourself to someone that's willing to have a look and maybe give you a chance? And do we think that in midlife, no one is going to have red flags or icks, as the common words are? Or are we naive to think that by the time we reach our mid 30s, mid 40s, mid 50s, that we're not going to have these flags or icks ourselves? Do dating apps create the illusion of endless choice? I think sometimes when you're on the dating apps, and if you're on them now, there does seem to be a continuous choice of who is available. It depends, obviously, how far you want to travel, and it depends upon the amount of effort that you actually want to put into your dating. Because one thing with the dating apps require, they require work and they do require a lot of time. And if you've got the time and you've got the energy to do that, then yes, there is an endless choice. I don't think you can complete a dating app because with the way that life is, it's constant change. People are coming out of relationships and coming out of marriages and all these other things that can happen to change your status. So there is always a flow of people that is going through going through dating apps. Do we see the same people on them all the time? Yes, because we are the same people. If you're single, that's what you are. And without opportunity, you will use that as a way of meeting people. I know when I wasn't in a relationship and I was on the dating apps that they were one of the main ways of meeting people because there aren't always people available to go out with at the weekend that are single, or people that are, if you are going out, you're going to sort of maybe couple led activities where you're not always going to get the chance to meet new people because it's the same circle of friends that you have that you're going out with. So you all know where everyone is and you'll know most of the people already. So it's unusual that you may meet people in those circumstances. So if you're not going out one weekend or for a couple of weekends, you sit there thinking, well, I'm not going to meet anyone in my front room. So you've got to find ways of meeting people if you want to meet people. There's always a better swipe on a dating app. It's like the equivalent of having 18 when you're playing pontoon or blackjack, where you think, I could get a four. I could get a four and hit that magic 21 here. You know, it's a case of a lot of the time you don't and you just bust. But because we're always searching for what we want and what we want to find, there is always that extra swipe. There is always another person. And is it always a better swipe? I would often argue that if you're tempted by other things, you may be in the wrong place anyway. So it's whether you act upon temptation. Temptation is always there. There's temptation for everyone, whether it's you're walking down the street and you see someone, or it's someone at work, or it's someone at the gym, whatever it may be. There's always temptation of other people. It's whether you actually act upon it. We're always tempted. If you're on a diet, you're tempted by chocolate. If you're, whatever it may be, there's always those temptations. It's just whether you act upon it. And if you choose not to act upon it, that's a good thing because you've resisted the temptation. It's when we act upon our temptations, obviously, we can get ourselves in trouble and things can go horribly wrong from there, which we've all done in the past. And I think as you grow older and you get wiser, you learn to analyze the risk more of thinking, right, that is tempting, but is it worth it? I'm going to lose an awful lot by doing what? A night of passion that, how many nights of passions have you had by the time you get into sort of your mid 40s? You've probably had enough of those anyway. And when you look back, how many of those nights of passion can you actually remember? And do you remember more than you forgot? So, were they worth it a lot of the time outside of the moment? And it is a lot of that, isn't it? It's we live in moments sometimes, and the moment is great, but those moments don't always stay with us forever. It's the important moments that you tend to remember, not the brief dopamine fixes that may come along. Should we invest early, or should we invest more in people? Do we have the time? It's a dating app. That's what it is. You're meeting people for the first time, and there's an expectation about dating. It's very interesting, actually. My nephew that I had on a podcast has been seeing a girl, and this is, I think, how different. Like it's the different generations as well. Now he's been seeing a girl for 3, 4 months. They've been going out on a regular basis, not seeing anyone else. He's thinking about, maybe not asking her to date. Now, to me, I think, well, you've been seeing her for 3 or 4 months. You're already dating. What is there to ask? You're a long way. You're 3 months into a relationship, in my eyes. But to them, it's not. They're getting to know each other, and maybe that's a lot better. Maybe we're stuck in our own ways of how we view relationships, and that's a lot of hangover from previous generations of our parents, that were always, you should sit longer with uncertainty. And really, should you? If you're uncertain about something, it's usually for a reason. And with dating apps, you don't have the time because you're not getting to know people first. You're dating straight away from the get-go. You're dating a stranger. That's what dating apps are. You're going out with a complete stranger on a date. And because you both know that there's this other swipe, another girl, another guy, you're kind of on a bit of a time clock. And no one wants to feel that they're competing. And lots of the time, we don't want to feel like we're competing because we don't want to lose. It's that rejection that, is sometimes hard to have, and even harder to handle sometimes when you're older, because that leads you to question yourself a lot more, which can be a good thing, and it could be a bad thing. For, I think, lots of men and lots of women, do you get home and go, well, is it me? Have I lost how I look? Am I not attractive anymore? And maybe I need to lose a few pounds, and or maybe a few injections might help. Maybe I've got too many wrinkles, and maybe it's my age now. And do I need to look younger? Do I need to dress differently? Whatever it may be. So there's all these questions that go on with our dating. When we are dating, that we question other people, we question ourselves. And from that, dating can be exhausting in midlife. There is dating fatigue. You do get an emotional burnout of just, Jesus Christ, I've had enough of this. This is exhausting. I'm quite happy on my own because I know where I am and I know what I'm doing, but you need the energy. You need to sometimes give yourself a break between doing it, because it is exhausting, because it's pressure. It's pressure on you. It's pressure on the person that you're meeting, pressure on expectation from your friends. Have you met anyone yet? And when you meet that guy the other week, how did that go? For you to say, oh yeah, well, I met him and didn't like his shoes, and then you've got to hear your friends all go, yeah, you're way too picky. You're way too picky. You just need to find a nice guy and settle down. And you're probably thinking, I don't want to meet a nice guy. The next person I meet, that could be my last. I want them to be my last. So I want them to be my everything. I want them to be everything that I haven't had and everything that I've wanted. And so I'm going to be choosy. I'm going to put me first, because that's what I deserve. And it is that's what we all deserve. We all deserve our everythings. And for the people that have got their everythings, you're extremely lucky. It's very hard work, probably, to retain that everything. And each year brings new challenges. So you're always developing in your relationships. We're permanently falling, as I like to think. I think if you ever reach that stage of we're in love, that's when it can bottom out a little bit. I think you should always be looking to be falling for someone all of the time, because that's what makes you try a bit harder. That's what makes you not relax too much, but be relaxed enough to be yourself. And in dating apps as well, You have a lot of these sort of failed talking stages. I always remember that you'd always have that dopamine hit, that excitement when there's someone that, oh, she looks interesting. I'll reply, and then they reply back, and then it's the normal questions after that. So, how have you found the dating apps? What do you do? What does how comes you're single? How have you found it being single? Have you got kids? Were you married? So then you go through over the next sort of 10, 15 messages or voice notes, whatever it may be. And that's another one, voice notes. As soon as you hear a voice, that's a game changer. But a voice can either attract you to someone or drive you away from someone, whichever it may be. And we're all completely different about voices as well. Looks can be a general thing. Most people can agree on they're really good looking, they're not as good looking as them. And it's a general consensus. Ryan Gosling, most people look at and go, good looking guy. And we can kind of all agree on that. But voices are very different. Someone can hear a voice and go, God, he's got a sexy voice. Other people can go, God, it just sounds like irritating. It sounds whingy, or it's too high pitched, or whatever it may be. So voice notes can be a great insight into that person, and not about their personality, just more to do with, if I've got to listen to this voice for the next 30 years, am I going to be able to do that? I always think of, it's terrible, but I always think of someone calling my name when I hear their voice and think, when I'm upstairs and they're downstairs and they're shouting up to me because they need something or want something, can I live with Elliott? Elliott? Whatever the voice may be, like constantly for the next 25 years, which is probably a terrible thing to do, but they're the things that we do when we're thinking about our next move. And, we going back to the original point of after you get after you get through all those questions and you then start talking, you're then looking at a picture. Hopefully by this time you get a video, but you're still only seeing sort of a brief screen, so you don't know what they look like, but you've got more of an idea. But you're building a picture up in your mind of, what this person's like. And often it's a picture that you want. It's probably not them. So in your head, it's like, yeah, they're like this and they're like that. And meanwhile, you're having all these messages and you're thinking, this is good because you're thinking that this is the person in your head. And then you're really excited. And then after 3-4 weeks, the messages just die out because you both start getting a bit bored of like just messaging back each other, because it used to be quick and then it's a day and then they reply. And then it's a couple of days before you reply. And then now you're back on the apps and you kind of, you've swiped someone else and you think, well, they look quite interesting. And then your attention starts to move towards something else, or something else happens in your life that you think, I've not got the time to be dealing with that now and replying to that. And then before you know it, you've almost had this micro relationship that has lasted 2.5 weeks via text message with a person that you've never met. And when you look back, you think, was that a waste of time? Or did it just feel gaps in my life that got me through to the next thing that I was doing? And it was a little bit of entertainment. And that's where a lot of people are on these dating apps as well. They're padding out time in their life sometimes, and not through any bad method, but I think sometimes we all want to feel connected. And I think dating apps are very good at doing that. They make you feel connected. So if you're thinking, I'm on my own tonight, I'll have a look at the apps, you might have 2 or 3 conversations that will get you through the evening and be quite entertaining. And, you know, it's fishing, so you're constantly looking to see if you get a good bite, but there may be a lot of things that you reel in, you have a look at and think it's not big enough, no pun intended, and you try it back again. But it gets us through an evening, and is that a bad thing? For some people, that's the worst part of dating apps. But aren't we all guilty of that? Do we not all do that? Are we, we talk about ghosting and these failed talking stages on dating apps, but aren't we all guilty of doing that? Do we not all do the same thing, but we just don't see it in ourselves? A lot of the time with dating apps as well, we take our old traumas into new dating. But that's human nature, right? If you've been hurt or burnt or whatever you want to call it in a previous relationship, you're far more susceptible in recognizing that in the future. And maybe you recognize it where it might not always be there, but that's a natural instinct for your own protection. So I don't think you can blame yourself for doing that. And you may make mistakes doing that, but your human nature is to protect yourself. So if you've been with someone that's cheated on you a lot, you're going to be very sensitive to anyone that you think, well, who are they texting? Now, they might just be looking at their phone, doing nothing. But in your head, you could be thinking, "Oh, I've seen that before, that where they're hiding their phone or whatever they may be doing, or it's late at night. And where we should go, listen, can I just put something out in the open? I need you to be upfront and honest because that could be nothing, but I've had this experience before. But at the same time, if you say that to someone after knowing them for a couple of months, in their head, they're going to be thinking, they're right maintenance, bloody hell. If there's no trust here, I don't know if I can do, I don't know if I can do this either. So it's always very difficult ground to be honest without being heard in the wrong way. So we always need to be aware of how we say things to people and also understanding, you know, how people can say something that they mean in a nice way, but don't actually verbalize it extremely well. Has social media changed our expectations of dating? Because there is a comparison culture now of where other people are. You can't help but do it. When you go to bed at night and you have a quick scroll through your phone and you end up going down all these rabbit holes, your phones just throw at you, these ripped guys with abs or these, girls with legs and bums and boobs, whatever it may be, because it's not stupid, your phone. It knows that if you look at it for longer than like half a second, it's going to give you another one. It's going to give you another guy chopping wood in the forest who's sweating and for some reason just wearing dungarees, which is dangerous and probably going to get a lot of bites. So not a good idea, but he does look hot. So the girls are going to look at it. We get it. It's no different to men. So you are constantly comparing, with these people that sort of, say like, I'm in my 50s and I still look like this. And if you're a 50-year-old guy, you're looking at them thinking, Jesus Christ, I need to do something. I need to up my game a little bit here because if that's what I'm competing with, I've got bugger all chance. So then like all of a sudden we're taking all different supplements and we're doing these workouts where apparently we're getting up at 2 o'clock in the morning and we're running before we do a whole day's work and then we're getting home and working out another 5 times again so that we can look like this guy that may never exist anyway and could just be AI. We don't know that, but that makes us feel better if we think that way. But it's the same with guys and women as well, and women must think exactly the same things. It's full. Social media now is full of these women. If you're a guy, you'll know this, that come on and, the camera's just set up so they're showing off their boobs and their cleavage. And it's like, I'm a 40-year-old single woman and I'm just looking for a nice guy. No, you're not. You're not. You're looking for followers and you're looking for likes. Don't blame you. Absolutely. If you can get away with it, why shouldn't you? You know, I'm not judging anyone for doing it, but what that does to a lot of guys and same for women is that sets their expectation thinking, well, those kind of guys are out there. That guy chopping wood is now reading a book and now he's writing poetry. So he's a very gentle soul. And so if those guys are out there, I want to try and find one. And it's the same with, the guys. It's social media can lend itself to creating an impression of what you can have when it's something that maybe is unrealistic for us all. And then you'll get the perfect couples highlights reel that, they've probably just been arguing and not talking all day. And then they do a social media clip where everything's great. And we buy into it. And why shouldn't we? Because we all want that. That's what we want. Is that any different from watching a rom-com where it ends so happily in the end? It's just a different form of entertainment that now fits how we are socially. We're very instant socially. Everything's got to be instant. The clips that we produce for podcasts like this, they have to grab people within the first 5 seconds. Otherwise, they're swiping. And it's not even 5 seconds now. I think it's 1.5 seconds. If you're not grabbed within the first 1.5 seconds, we're swiping. And you think people's attention is terrible. But we all do it. That's us. All of us do that. Because if we're not captured straight away, we move on. And it's only sometimes nostalgia of when you play uh, a record now and you hear an intro and you think, I love this intro. People wouldn't stand for the intros now in music. They're gone. If it takes too long, I listen to Spotify, and if I'm just searching, unless it's something that's nostalgic to me, and I know any new music, if I haven't been grabbed in the first 1 or 2 seconds, I'm gone. And that's the same with dating apps. You've got to be grabbed straight away. And what's the first thing that grabs us is visual. Dating apps are a visual tool, first and foremost, because the first thing you see is the picture. That's the first thing you see is all about the picture. It's the picture and the age of the people that gets you interested. And if you don't grab them straight away, they're swiping. So from all of created unrealistic standards and expectations, and then we've got this obsession with red flags, green flags, and icks now that if we all think that we've got to this age that we are anything beyond 30, and upwards, if you all think that you've got no red flags, green flags yourself, then you're deluding yourself. You really are. We've all got things about us that are not good and that we wish we could change. And it's finding someone that accepts it. That's the bottom line. And it's also finding people's deficiencies that you can accept as well, that just aren't too much for you and they don't go against your morals. You might find them slightly aggravating, but it's an aggravation that you can put up with and you can deal with because of all the other things in them that you learn to love or you like, whatever stage of the relationship you're in. So online, people diagnose each other really quickly, but that's the culture. That's what we've created, that instant diagnosis of knowing someone, because you don't get to know people. We just don't. Men and women both struggle on dating apps. It's not just men, and it's not just women. Women just want men, to be honest. That's what you want, women. A lot of the time, that the feedback I get is like, we just want guys to be honest. We just want them to be upfront about what they want. They don't want to be honest because they don't want to be judged. If Frank comes onto his dating app profile and just says, all I'm looking for at the moment is I just want physical. That's all I want. I just want sex. I want to get to know someone, but I want to enjoy myself. I've had 10 years where I haven't enjoyed myself. I now want to enjoy myself. So I want to meet people for a physical relationship. Frank's probably getting moved on from quite a bit. The only thing is, though, Frank, is that the ones that do contact you, you know exactly where you're going to stand. Men could be more honest, but a lot of the time they don't want to be judged for what they want, because they know now that with women's expectations, they're going to want more than maybe where they are at the moment. It's a case of people want to be honest, but they don't want to be judged. And I think women are the same. I'm sure there's women out there that, they just want to date a load of 22-year-olds and have fun, but they don't want to put that on their profile straight away. It's difficult. And other women don't want that at all. They don't want any relationship, but they don't want to put that on there. They don't want to say, listen, I'm not looking for a physical relationship whatsoever. All I'm looking for is a bit of company, and I want to be taken out now and again, and I want someone to listen to me. Most guys are gonna not go for that, but at the same time, the guys that do, you're gonna get what you want. If we were all brutally honest on the dating apps about what exactly we want, then they probably would work a lot better. But a lot of the time, a lot of us don't even know what we want when we're on them. You're just, you want a bit of excitement with the potential that it may go somewhere. That's the nuts and the bolts of it. Like we did when we were younger, in our 20s, we didn't overthink stuff. The big thing about dating in midlife is time. You feel like you're running out of time. And, it's that, right, well, I look okay now. I don't want to look again in another 2 years because every time I look in the mirror, I'm noticing more cracks, more wrinkles, more of this, more of that. Things that are up here are now down there. So I want to make sure that I'm doing this now while the packaging still looks good. So we all seem to be on a time clock as we get older in our own heads. So we want to make the best of everything. So we don't feel like we've got that time. So we all tend to end up blaming each other. Um, do podcasts and social media create a division between men and women because they're sometimes the voice of what people want to say but don't want to? I don't think they do. I think if anything, a lot of the time they make light of it and bring humour to something that is needs to be talked about and brings up that conversation. It introduces that conversation in a form that is received with laughter. So it makes it easier to get into serious conversations about and for people to actually start talking about it. And the more people talk about a subject, the easier it is to talk about a subject because it becomes more familiar and it becomes more accepted. I think a lot of the time it's not a matter of, do people find there's a division? There just needs to be more conversation about it. So, if we look at all the things in dating apps, is what people want. Do people want safety? Yes, especially women. You're going to meet a stranger. So you want to feel safe. People really, need to feel safe about everything. Consistency. It's dating app. I don't think you're going to get consistency. You may be looking for consistency from people, but it's early in dating, so people are going to be making quick decisions. So it's going to be inconsistent by its own nature. So you're not always going to find that consistency that you want. Calmness. Some people just don't want calmness. Some people do. I think it's more a question of drama. You don't want the drama that, meeting someone that early, you don't want any drama. So you want it to feel calm. Even if it's a case of you go out, you have coffee and you just both go, yeah, we're not for each other, but nice meeting you. And walk away, rather than, it has to be a date or yeah, I saw a clip of a woman the other day talking about this guy, and he said that coffee doesn't excite me. Oh, Jesus Christ, it's a coffee. We all need to be honest, and we all want to feel chosen with dating apps because it does very much deal with your emotions in terms of how you see yourself. It can be a confidence booster or a confidence crusher sometimes when people don't get back to you because you do feel like you're constantly being judged because you are. It's a dating app. You are being judged. But these people that want, to be swept away and, or guys that feel like they need to say lines like, coffee doesn't excite me. It's coffee, no, where do you want it? We can go, go anywhere in the world and have a coffee. But you're not going to do that on a first date. It's a first date, exactly what it is. Listen, in closing, dating apps, you're meeting strangers. What you don't get with dating apps is time to meet people. Because where you meet people organically, and this is where the big difference is, when you meet people organically, you get to know them. So they can make a mistake or they can do something stupid that you might go and then not think any more of it. And then the next day, they might do something really nice for you in whatever way it may be. And you might think, and then you might see something else in them, or they might make you laugh sometimes when you're feeling down, or, it could be something that they wear one day and you go, oh, they look okay. Or it could be something that anything that a conversation that you have with them. So you get this process of getting to know someone through bad things that you see and good things that you see. And then maybe you have a conversation one day where you go, do you fancy having a drink? And you go out for a drink, but you're not going out with a stranger. So you've already got this build up of a person in your head where you've seen some things that that keen on, but you've seen a lot of other things that you're really keen on. So, you already know them when you're going. So you're heading into that part of your dating relationship. You might have known them for 3 months, you might have known them for 6 months, it could be longer, whatever it may be, but you're not starting from zero. It's not a stranger. And then you start, getting to know that person more and more within that dating. And again, it could last another 2, 3 months, 6 months. It could go on and be a great relationship. With dating apps, you're meeting a complete stranger that you know nothing about, and that you're on your back foot a little bit because you're very wary, because you might, as we've said in this podcast, taking a lot of stuff into your relationship that, from your last relationship that you're very aware of. So, you might see that first thing that puts you off, and that's it, done. Because you're only meeting them maybe first date for an hour or so. So you've got no time on a dating app to make a mistake. No, you literally, it's a tightrope. You put one foot out of line, and that could be you done. People aren't going to give you, most of the time on dating apps, room to make mistakes, because there's other people that they can swipe. They can go to someone else. You're only a finger swipe away from the next person. So when you're turning up to these dating apps, you've got to be on point of what you're doing all the time. And that's a lot of pressure, because you can't be yourself. It's like, right, I'm going to turn up. I've got to be exciting. I've got to wow them. I've got to say something that's interesting. I don't want to talk about my previous relationships too much. And I don't want to seem like I'm not listening. And I don't want to seem like, I'm overbearing and too attentive. So you've got all this stuff, and you're meeting a stranger for the first time. And it's so difficult because you're going off what you had. And a lot of the time when you turn up, it's going to be an instant attraction or not to the person, because like we said earlier, they've probably built a picture of you up in your head already. And as soon as they see you, you may not live up to that picture that they built up. And that's not about you. It's not personal. That's about them, what they're looking for. And you may not just be it. So as soon as they see you, straight away, they might go, nah. And when you actually see that in people's faces, that's a hard one to take. And that takes a while to get used to on dating apps as well. But sometimes you might be so much more than they're looking for. They might see you and go, wow, you look so much better than your photos. And that's great to hear. You feel like 10 foot tall after that. All of a sudden you're walking home with a bit of a swagger in your shoulders. So it can go both ways, but dating apps, you are meeting strangers. Is it just certain types of characters that have ruined dating apps? Or is it just us as people? That's what we do. We take an idea that fundamentally should be really simple and it should be really good, but people are complex characters, and a dating app doesn't work complex characters. It gives you opportunity to meet people. So is it dating apps or people? Dating apps provide opportunity. They provide a basic platform for people to connect. People are very complex. People are very sometimes. So the dating apps, they can't account for that. They can ask you about prompts, they can give you videos and everything else that may help. But until you meet someone person to person, it's very difficult to gauge where they are. And also, dating apps are introducing you to strangers. When you meet people organically, they're not usually a complete stranger. You've usually had some interaction with them. That may be in a bar. It may be in a bar where you've had a drink with them, and that may only be an hour and a half. But you've actually had a conversation with that person. You've got to see them. You've got to feel what their energy is like, their aura, how they dress, how they smell, how they talk. All these things you don't get on a dating app. So it's very difficult for dating apps to get over that hurdle as such. But people are such complex characters. It's people that sometimes take a very simplistic idea and complicate it, because it's the people that will send inappropriate photos to people. Are they the ones that are just being sort of, look, this is what I'm looking for. If you're interested, let me know. Now that's going to disgust 98% of people, but the other 2% might be really into it, and that's all they care about. But unfortunately, if you met that person in a bar, you'd probably dismiss them after 2 seconds, because you'd pick up on that anyway of what they were looking for. That this guy just wants a one night stand. I'm not interested. Or it could be that this guy just wants a one night stand. I am interested. But you don't get that on dating apps. So you have to go through everyone. Dating apps are a visual catalogue of people. That's what they are. They give you an introduction. So I don't think dating apps have necessarily ruined dating. I think what the basic part of them they've done is they've given opportunity. I think people have probably ruined dating apps because the nature of people, we're complex, we're different, we have different views, we have different ways of doing everything. And as in all walks of life with people, we don't always get on. So when we're all using the same platform, when you've got all these different people, they just don't get on. And that's the other thing about organic dating. There's certain places you'll go because of the crowd that goes there. So if it's like a hotel bar, if you're going to go to a hotel bar, you're going to get a certain sort of person. If you go to a dive bar or a grunge bar, you're going to get a different sort of person. Depending on how you see life, you might go, yeah, dive bars, you're going to get real people. Yeah, that's my kind of person. Or if you go to a hotel bar, you might think, well, I'm going to meet very affluent people. I'm going to meet people that are there on business. I'm going to meet interesting people, people from different parts, whatever it may be. But you're going because of that certain type of people. You don't get that on dating apps. Everyone's just thrown into the same app. The filters that we put on, I don't know if anyone even looks at those filters. I'll be honest half the time, because anyone that's used I only want to date people in a 10-mile radius, then you'll pick up someone who lives in another country and you think, well, that's not 10 miles, is it? So I often do think that, the filters are there as a little bit of a help, but they're not great because the app by its own um, sort of the way that it works needs to keep feeding you people. Otherwise, you're not going to stay on it and then it's not going to make money. It's all these things that combine that I think it's people rather than dating apps. The bottom line is dating apps, they provide an opportunity for people that may not get an opportunity, and they're fun to use, but that's all they are. They're just fun to use, and they could give you something, but they they definitely will give you experience, and they definitely will give you a lot of funny stories, and they may give you the opportunity to meet someone that works, and that has happened for lots of people. So it's a bit like the lottery. If you're not going to buy a ticket, you definitely ain't going to win it. So sometimes it's just about having a go. And I found with dating apps as well that unless you have a go, it's very difficult to have an opinion of them as well. You've actually got to do it in order to understand it in the first place. So I think apps, they provide opportunity. It's up to you how you accept that opportunity or how you work that opportunity for your own self. But let me know about your dating app experiences, not with people, but your actual experience of how they work and what's worked for you, what's not worked for you, and give me your feedback on the podcast as well, because that always helps me. But thank you for following 50 Shades and Grey. Hope you've enjoyed this episode. Let me know any ideas about areas of episodes that you want us to look at and you want us to talk about, and we'll be happy to do that. But thank you for make sure you follow, make sure you subscribe, and thank you for listening. Take care, guys. Bye bye.